Greetings to everyone. My name is Chinmay Vinay Dandavati. I am pursuing my MSc in Statistics from the Institute of Science Nagpur. Currently, I am in the second semester of this program, and the topic which I have selected for making a seminar on the elective paper of MSc Semester 2 Statistics is demand analysis. The reason behind choosing this as a topic being the fact that the financial budget of this nation for the session 2025-26 was released on the first day of this month, that is February 1, 2025. So with this being the backdrop, I thought demand analysis would be a great topic to make a seminar on, and the people would be able to connect with this topic a lot since it has a lot to do with their day-to-day lives. So as demand analysis is the topic for my seminar, the major focus would be on the transactions which occur in day-to-day life in terms of money or in terms of goods. So in this topic, demand analysis, the most important thing is not analysis but demand. Since for analyzing demand, we first need to know what is demand. So, as per the definition of demand, the textual definition of demand, demand is the amount of a product that consumers are willing and able to purchase for a given price during a specified period of time. This implies that demand shows the quantities of a product that will be purchased at various possible prices, the other factors and other things like time remaining equal. Now here there are two things which stand out from the definition of demand, first being willingness and second being ability. Now why these two things are important? For demanding something, there are two things or two factors necessary for posing that demand. First one being that we are willing to get that thing, and second and the practically most important thing being the fact that we are financially able to pay for it. For example, everybody of us wishes to have a helicopter at our home, but however that cannot be a demand since most of us are not financially able to pay for it. And willingness, now all the millionaires and the billionaires who are in this world, they can have all the utensils at their home made of gold, but they are not willing to do so. So this example, they show as to how these two things which are mentioned here stand out from the definition of demand. The presence of both these things is essential for considering that wish as a demand in the financial market. Now with this being the definition of, so after having dealt with what is demand, now since this topic is entirely statistical, so it will have a healthy part of the mathematical treatment. So we will have to deal with what is demand schedule and demand curve. So firstly we will deal with what is demand schedule. So demand schedule can be defined as the tabulated representation showing the total quantity of goods or services that the buyers are wished to buy at each price. So we can see that there are few commodities which are needed by one and all in the society. But however, the paying capacity for the same commodity is different for everyone. So thus, there is a certain tabulation of this data where for different prices, the corresponding number of demanders are represented. And this can be elaborated more with the help of this table. So here we can see that we have one column of price and another column which is having the quantity demanded for corresponding price. So let's say the commodity which is demanded here is wheat. So let's say 1 kg of wheat for a certain breed costs rupees 30, for another breed it costs rupees 50, for some another it costs 80, and so on 100 and 130. And we have the corresponding number of people who are demanding that particular 1 kg of wheat for that particular cost. So here we can see for a cost of 30 rupees per kg of wheat, 8,000 people are demanding. For a cost of rupees 50 per kg, 6,000 people demand it. For a cost of rupees 80 per kg, 4,000 people demand it. For a cost of rupees 100 per kg, 2,000 people demand it. And for a cost of rupees 130 per kg, nobody demands it. Now, after dealing with what is demand schedule, we need to know what is demand curve. So as we have said earlier, this topic is statistical. So it would also include a portion of graphical representation. So demand curve is nothing but the graphical representation of this tabulated demand schedule. So for this particular example, we also have the graph of this table. So here we can see that the y-axis, it denotes the quantity demanded, that is the number of people who are having a certain demand, and the x-axis denotes the price of the concerned commodity. uh, and we can see that as per the table, at a cost of rupees 30, 8,000 people pose that particular commodity as a demand. For a cost of rupees 50, 6,000 people they pose it as a demand. At a cost of rupees 80, 4,000 people pose it as a demand. At a cost of rupees 100, 2,000 people pose it as a demand. And at a cost of rupees 130 per kg, nobody demands it. So we plot these points and connect it with a line, and this line can be termed as a demand curve. Here we need to realize what are the determinants of demand and the quantity demanded. In any economic framework, in the economy of any nation, there are certain factors which decide as to what would be the demand of certain product at a certain point of time. So we need to study, we need to systematically analyze as to what are those determinants which will determine, or for that matter predict, the demand and the quantity demanded for a certain product. So here are some of them. The first one, of course, being the income, because more the income, more the financial capacity to buy something. Second one being the preferences. Of course, there are people who come from all the walks of life. So everybody would be having his or her own priority. And the price of the related goods, of course. Let's say we are willing to buy a laptop, since the entire world is now becoming more and more technological. So laptop is going to be a necessity. But again, within laptop itself, there are many brands. If you purchase a laptop of some small brand, it would be of a reasonable price. But if you purchase a laptop of some international brand, so that same laptop would cost in 7 digits. So if there is an equivalent good, a related commodity, which is being offered at a relatively less price, so that can be a potential determinant of the demand. Another one being the expectation. Of course, the intentions behind using a certain commodity might be different from for many people. And another factor being, of course, the number of buyers, because there are many things which are not used by the common people, but they are used only by the professionals. Now, with this being the factors which determine the demand and the quantity demanded, we also need to know how that determinants can be represented graphically. So here is the graph. We can see the y-axis denotes the price, the x-axis denotes the quantity demanded, and we can see that as the quantity demanded, here we are having this quantity demanded, as this quantity increases, so the price also increases. And as the quantity decreases, here the quantity is increasing from D1 to D2, whereas here it is decreasing from D1 to D2. So we can see that in this particular graph, there is a movement of this graph to the right direction, whereas here it is to the left direction. So this increase in the demand also means an increase in the price. So with this being the determinants, now we move to the demand function. So as we have seen the various factors which determine as to what would be the demand for a certain product, we need to establish a mathematical relation as to how the demand for a certain product at a certain point of time can be determined by using any particular mathematical operator. So demand function of a product by definition is a function of its own price, price of the related goods, income, tastes. Now tastes here mean references. Tastes, the word tastes is not to be taken in a literal sense. Population, expectations, and many other factors other than the own price, of course. Mathematically, it can be said that the demand, which is denoted by Q, is a mapping of all these sets with these respective denotations. Now here we need to make a note that as we have seen in the previous slide that the graph for price and demand was a linear graph, but whereas demand function specifies the relationship between the quantity demanded of a product with many independent variables, demand curve of product is a graphical representation of only a part of the demand function with only the price as the independent variable. Okay, so we move ahead. Now demand is a one part or a particular portion of the entire economic framework. Demand is to be supplemented by supply. Demand is one half of the picture, supply is another half of the picture. And it is the responsibility of any government or any nation to fulfill the demand of its population. So now we need to understand what is supply. So supply can be defined as the amount of product that the producers are willing to and able to make available for sale at each of a series of possible prices during a specific period. Now, let's say food. Food is the basic necessity of any human being. Now, the supply of food can be defined as the amount of food that the producers are willing to and they are financially able to make available for sale at each of a series of possible prices. Now let's say we are willing to purchase supply rice. Now there are many breeds of rices with their different prices. So this supply covers all those different breeds of prices with rices with their respective price, with their respective cost, and there would be a study of it to know what is the supply power of any particular firm, or on the higher end the supply power of any nation. Now this also implies that supply shows the quantities of a product that will be supplied at a various possible price other than the things being equal. As I have said earlier, the prices will definitely vary, so this will also show the quantities of a product that will be supplied at various possible prices, other things being equal, of course. Now, two things which again stand out from the definition of supply, just like the definition of demand, are willingness and ability. The producers, they should be willing to supply and they should have the financial capability to supply. Now, as we have seen in demand, the demand schedule and the demand curve, similarly we would be dealing with the supply schedule and the supply curve. So supply schedule, analogously like demand schedule, can be defined as the tabulated representation to show the total quantity of a good or service that the producers wish to supply at each price. Again, we would be dealing with an example. So here we have again price and the quantity supplied. So we can see for a price 200, 0 people are willing to supply or 0 quantity of goods is supplied because that does not make any profit for the suppliers. At a price 400, 2000 people or 2000 producers are willing to supply. At a price 600 rupees, 4000 producers are willing to supply. Similarly, at a price 800, 6000 people are willing to supply. Now the reason being behind this increase of price along with the increase in supply being the higher profit which can be made by the producers, of course. Now what is supply curve? So of course this table can be further converted into a graph and that can be subjected to mathematical treatment and that will lead to a supply curve. So we also have a supply curve for this table. We have plotted all these values and we have connected those values with a straight line, where this straight line denotes the supply curve. So moving ahead, now we deal with, just like the determinants of demand and the uh, quantity demanded, we have the determinants of supply and the quantity supplied. So the many factors which which determine as to what would be the supply. So they are the input prices, the investment which is done into various firms also determine as to what would be the production capacity of that particular firm. Technology, because more the technological advancement, more the efficiency. Taxes and subsidies, lesser the taxes, lesser the subsidies, lesser the economic pressure over those firms. Number of sellers, so even if there is a company which is making good stuff or a good product, but the people who are selling that particular product are less or they are not so efficient, so then of course it won't reach to maximum possible public. Expectations, of course the producers, they have to abide by the expectations of the public. And again, the price of related goods, for making something, for making a product for that matter, the prices of the raw material should also be reasonable. And the effect of all these determinants can also be analyzed graphically as follows: price and quantity supplied. So less the quantity supplied, more the price. As the quantity supplied increases and the graph shifts to the right side, so the price decreases. And here we can see, the as the quantity supplied decreases, it moves to the left side, more the price. So now as we have dealt with what is demand function, similarly we deal with what is supply function. So supply function is the functional relationship of the supply of a commodity and the factors responsible for the changes in supply, and it is a function of the price of that particular good, the price of the related good, the input prices, the technology, the number of sellers, the expectations of the consumers, the taxes and subsidies, and many other factors which can be mathematically represented like this. And now, after dealing with what is demand analysis, what is demand supply, we also need to understand what are the advantages of considering demand analysis as a separate discipline. So here are few of the many advantages of demand analysis. First of all, we can decide a reasonable price for the products by doing such a systematic study. We can forecast as to what demand would there be for a certain product in the upcoming time, and that can further prevent production loss for the firms. Thirdly, analysis of business cycle. We can analyze as to which business will prosper more in the upcoming time. There can be a scope for competitor analysis. With the mathematical data, the statistical data of the demand and supply, there can be a very definition of market. The market can be very well defined, and whenever there is a mathematical study of the demand, so the customer insights can be focused upon very well. So with this being said, I am done with my seminar, which deals with this topic of demand analysis, and it's the time for acknowledgements. So these are all the resources which I used for designing my seminar. So I thank you for all your time and your attention. Thank you.